Hey there, welcome to another video here on my channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about the look of the White Lotus. And in this video, I'm not just going to be jumping into Davinci Resolve and breaking down the look. I've done a lot of digging into what went into the creation of this show. So we're going to be breaking down the cinematography, what the cinematographer was looking for when it came to the creation of this show, and what the colorist may have heard and what the colorist may have been working with when it came to the creation of the overall look of this show. So this is going to be more of an in-depth analysis into the look of the White Lotus. So let's jump right into it. Before we get started on this, all this information is something that I was able to dig up based on the reading that I've done and based on the podcast that I've listened to. I may not be correct on all the information that I have here, but I'm just working with what I've been able to get through my own personal research and digging. If you know more information, let me know in the comment section down below. This show was graded by Stefan Sonnenfeld out of Company 3 New York. Now, Stefan is somebody that has been in this game for a very, very long time, probably before I was even born. He's one of the founders of Company 3, and they do a lot of great work. If you're not following them on Instagram, if you're not following Stefan on Instagram, just make sure you just go out there. If you're interested in color grading, follow these people. They do a lot of great work. But as I was saying, Stefan has been in this game for a long time. Most recently, he's graded A Quiet Place 2, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. He's also done Suicide Squad, and he has a couple of upcoming movies like Ghostbusters and Nightmare Alley that he did a lot of great work on. So Stefan, I bow down to you. You do a lot of great work. One day, hopefully I can meet you and we can teach me some stuff that you work on. Now for the cinematography of the show. This show was shot by Ben Cutchins. Ben Cutchins, I believe he did Ozark as well too. But in this interview that I'm going to link down in the comment section down below on the Go Creative Show podcast, he talked about everything that went into the shooting of this show and the look that he was going for this particular show. According to what Ben Cutchins said on this podcast, this was shot on the Alexa Mini. The lenses used were the Zeiss Super Speeds, the Cooke X4s, and the Baltars. Also in the interview, he spoke about the look he wanted for this show. So when it comes to color grading, when it comes to the look of a show, the look is usually set either by the director or the cinematographer. Now on this show, Ben Cutchins was talking about the look that they wanted for this show, and he wanted it to feel warm. He wanted it to feel like a vacation, and he wanted it to feel like a memory of a vacation. So he wanted a specific look for this entire show. And on the interview, he spoke about they went through so many different iterations for this show before they finally came to what they came up with. Now, The White Lotus as a show is something that's completely unique to everything that you see out there in the world today. It's still technically teal and orange, right? If you look at the breakdown, which we're going to jump into in a little bit, it's still technically teal and orange. But this is not the usual teal and orange that you see in every single Hollywood movie. The orange is like all over. The orange is all over and the greens are in the shadows. On the interview, Ben Cutchins said that he wanted to make sure that there was a shadow in almost every single scene. They shot this in a hotel on different floors. They couldn't necessarily control the lighting all the time, even though they tried the most to make sure everything looked a specific way. They couldn't necessarily control the lighting because they're shooting natural lighting for some of the scenes. They did shoot day for night sometimes. Now the look that the cinematographer was going for, which is the warm feeling, the feeling of being on vacation, the feeling of the memory of vacation, this is something that would have been communicated to the colorist. And the colorist would have been like, okay, that's what you want, let me see what I can do, right? They would have gone through different iterations of what the look could look like and finally settling on something that they could work with. And I know for this show that they did create a show LUT, so a LUT that they could use to shoot on sets, that's not necessarily the final look, but something that can be like, hey, we like where this is going, let's move on. And the LUT is also something that the dailies colors could work with and something that the editors and producers can see that this is what the final show is going to look like. Now for this video, we're going to be doing two different types of breakdowns. We're going to be breaking down by eye, watching what you see on screen, and then I'm going to jump into Davinci Resolve and breaking down a couple of scenes, seeing what you see inside Davinci Resolve. So let's jump right into it. In this specific scene, you see Tanya and Belinda played by two wonderful actresses, and you can see the breakdown in the colors, right? You can see in the shadows, you have greens, in the highlights, you have yellows, the midtones, obviously in the skin tones, you have more, I don't know, you can see some yellows, you can see some blues. And when it comes to color grading, it's not just about the light, because yes, we do shape light a lot, we do push people's attention to specific parts of the scene, but there's also the set design, there's also the costume design, there's also hair and makeup. all these things go into creating the look of the show. Right? We wouldn't be anything if it wasn't for the people that make sure that the sets look the way it's supposed to look and make sure that the costumes look the way it's supposed to look. So I tip my hat to these folks because they create the overall look of the show as well, even more so than the colorists and the DPs and the directors do. But as you can see right here, they have a beautiful color palette running throughout this entire scene. This one is a quick scene of Olivia and Paula. They're doing a little ASMR thing. So let's jump right into this.
I love it when you whisper.
Like this is, I actually love this scene because
Do you
of
want to listen to
I love
ASMR?
ASMR. I'm just one of those type of people. But you can see in this particular scene the shadows. The shadows are green, the midtones are orange and teal. Again, it's the teal and orange look. It's the teal and orange look all throughout this entire show. But it's different because the orange is like the skin is sort of blending into the highlights and the midtones, and even though it's blending in, there's still separation. And in this particular scene, yes, this was shot at night, so you can see the separation between the blues in the shadows and the teal and orange in the skin tones. Even the color of her nails, that's teal. The weed that they're doing, the drugs that they were working on, everything just like works together to just create magic. And that's one thing that I really, really love about this show, and it just brings me joy every time I watch it. Now we're going to jump into DaVinci Resolve, and we're going to be breaking down a couple of shots in the scene so we can use DaVinci Resolve to show you exactly what went into the shadows, midtones, and the highlights. So let's jump right into it. Right now we are inside DaVinci Resolve, and I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite shots that I was able to find. And we're going to be breaking down the color palettes and just talking about everything that went into creating the look of this show. These are the shots I'm going to be taking a look at. Some of these shots are some of my favorite shots from the entire show, but they also show the nuances of everything that went into creating the look of this show. Everything from set design to costume design to lighting, and finally the color grading process. Now, I'm not going to be talking about all the scenes in this show. I'm going to be talking specifically about this shot right here, talking about this shot right here, and also this shot right here. So let's jump into the first shot I'm going to be talking about, which is this one right here. This was when the son went out and slept on the beach. I believe this was the first night he slept on the beach. And as you can see, the shadows are really, really blue. The shadows right here are really blue. They almost blend into each other. If you look at the ocean right here and you look at the shadows right here on the sand and the contrast in the midtones over here that we have right here, the contrast that we see over here in between the what's happening in the sky right here and what's happening down here in the shadows is something that's truly, truly spectacular. This was made to look like sunsets. Now, this could have been a sky replacement. We don't know if this was a sky replacement at all. This could have been a completely different sky. This could have been shot at a different time of day. But what we do know is what we see on screen right here. This is the final, final look of the show. You can see the shadows. There's not really much going on in the highlights in this particular shot, but the mid it's really more in the midtones and the shadows, and there's nothing really, really blown out, which is why we don't get any representation over here in the highlights. But again, this is a beautiful shot. This was beautifully graded by Stefan, and it came out looking even more gorgeous on screen. Let's go to the next shot. This is the next shot we're going to be talking about. And I really wanted to talk about this one because you can see the effect of the costume design. If you look at his jacket right here, you can see it right here in the midtones, right? Some of it is also in the shadows, but you can see the immaculateness, the planning that went into this. Look at the color of this, whatchamacallit, I don't know, this binder that he's holding in his hand. Again, planned with the set design. So when the colorist is working with these shots, it's like second nature to just like play with this. Look at the way this matches with this in the background, right? This means something that was done on set, or this could have been something that was done in post, right? Look at the way the contrast in the highlights over here and the shadows over here. I think this is probably the darkest point on screen, and this is the brightest point right here. All these are put together to give you the final image that you see on screen. The way that the contrast, the bright highlights and the dark shadows, and also the midtones that you see here in the skin tones, and you see also here in the costume. All of this again works together to create the look of the show. Another thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to this show is how much the skin tones almost blend into the warmth that you see throughout the entire show. I want you to take a look at the warmth that is carried on throughout the entire show. Look at the warmth in this scene. Look at the warmth in this scene. This one's a little bit cool, but you can still feel the warmth over here in the shadows. And let's take a look at this one as well too. You can see the warmth all the way through the entire show because the cinematographer wanted it to feel like you're on vacation in a hot place. And once we've watched the show, once we've seen the first episode of a show, we're locked in. We're built into that world. We know exactly what we're getting. And something that colorists always have to do is carry that on throughout the entire show. Now, we don't know what the raw look like. We don't know what the dailies look like. All we see is the final product. And what I can say with the final product, and one skill that every colorist needs to perfect, is the ability to carry a look throughout an entire show. That's something that separates professionals from beginners. And whenever you're watching a show on TV, if you're watching YouTube videos, sometimes you can see that, yes, this wasn't matched, or sometimes you're like, yeah, you could literally just have warmed it up a little bit or cooled it down a little bit just to make sure that this stuff is matching. But you never see that on professional shows because this is what separates professionals from beginners. Again, watch the midtones of all these shots. Watch the midtones right here, see what happens. Let's see the midtones right here, warm. Midtones warm, midtones warm, midtones warm, midtones warm. Again, if you look at this shot right here, you can see the umbrellas. The umbrellas are the same colors as the suits. Umbrellas are the same colors. The couches that you see right here, same color. It's the same color as the ocean right here, same color as his binder, same color as this right here, the same color as this right here, and it's also the same color as we see right here. The colors are carried on throughout the entire show, and these are different episodes. These are different times in the show. All of this is carried through. So the warmth is carried through in the backgrounds. The bluish, tealish color is carried on through the costume design, through the set design, and carried on through the entire show. And everything just works together. And that's what happens when you plan for the colors that you want to work with. And that brings us to the end of this video. If this video has brought you any value, please make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, as this goes a long way, a very long way, to making sure I produce more content like this. Until next time, make sure you stay safe, make sure you stay coloring, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.